Hello, and welcome to Shakespeare 2020 LA. Shakespeare 2020 LA is the Los Angeles division of Shakespeare Project 2020, a worldwide challenge created by Ian Desher to read the entire Shakespeare canon in 2020. Shakespeare 2020 LA is comprised of professional Los Angeles and Friends actors. Our reading today is Edward III, and our players are Jason Rennie, Christopher Carbo, Taylor Marr, Sasha Venn, Megan Wells, Chris Klein, Caitlin McCormick, Ben Birmingham, Elizabeth Juvenal, Elise Ashton, Julie Measley Grossman, and I'm Mary Carrick. And our special treat today is our director, Jason Rennie.
Thank you, Mary. In 1986, at the Globe Playhouse in Los Angeles, and then in 1987 at Theatre Clwyd in Wales, a play was performed that hadn't been seen on stage in its full form in nearly 400 years. The renewed interest and analysis of this play, whose provenance and authorship had been debated since 1760, led to the announcement by Yale University Press in 1996 of an early Shakespearean play restored to the canon. By 2017, Cambridge, Oxford, Riverside, and Arden, our modern publishing authorities of Shakespeare's works, had followed Yale's lead. This play is King Edward III, and is today's reading. The debate over the extent of Shakespeare's authorship in the play has ranged from all to none. However, most scholars have landed somewhere in the middle, at least 4 scenes in full, and some smaller contributions elsewhere. Indeed, the play does bear evidence of a collaborative composition, similar to Henry VI Part 1, Titus Andronicus, Pericles, and the Two Noble Kinsmen. And authorial collaborations were quite common in Shakespeare's time, similar to how many television and film scripts are composed today. Unfortunately, it has not yet been determined who or how many other collaborators there were. King Edward III was likely written between 1592 and 93, and performed until possibly 1596 when the first printed version of the play appears in quarto, anonymously, with no attribution to its author or playing company. A revised quarto appears in 1599, and after that the play falls into obscurity. It's thought that the play may have been banned in 1598 or 1599, following a protest to Queen Elizabeth from the Scottish ambassador, complaining about the unflattering and derisive depictions of Scots on the London stage. If so, the ascension of the Scottish King James to the English throne in 1603 would have sealed its fate. The play is not included in the first folio of 1623, which is no surprise, given that it had been completely out of circulation for about 25 years. Modern audiences will undoubtedly notice in Edward III similarities in language, theme, device, and structure to the later history plays Henry IV Parts 1 and 2, and especially Henry V. In Henry V, this is somewhat unavoidable, as historically Henry V revived the same claim to the French throne as his great-grandfather, and modeled his military campaign in France after Edward's successes. Yet, King Edward III stands well on its own merits, and is more than just a first draft of Henry V. It may not be a masterpiece, but the early works of many renowned artists rarely are. What it does show, however, is a young artist growing beyond a collaborator, preparing to tackle much more complex work on his own, and taking full credit for it. Back to Mary.
Thank you, Jason. You know the routine. Sit back in that familiar easy chair, relax, and enjoy William Shakespeare and Friends, Edward III.
Act 1, Scene 1, London. A room of state in the palace. Enter King Edward, Derby, Prince Edward, Audley, and Artois.
Robert of Artois, banished though thou be from France, thy native country, yet with us thou shalt retain as great a seigneury. For we create the Earl of Richmond here. And now go forwards with our pedigree. Who next succeeded Philip le Beau?
3 sons of his, which all successfully did sit upon their father's regal throne, yet died, and left no issue of their loins.
But was my mother sister unto those?
She was, my lord, and only Isabel was all the daughters that this Philip had, whom afterward your father took to wife. And from the fragrant garden of her womb, your gracious self, the flower of Europe's hope, derived is inheritor to France. But note the rancor of rebellious minds. When thus the lineage of Le Beau was out, the French obscured your mother's privilege, and though she were the next of blood proclaimed, John of the house of Valois, now their king. The reason was, they say, the realm of France, replete with princes of great parentage, ought not admit a governor to rule, except he be descended of the male. And that's the special ground of their contempt, wherewith they study to exclude your grace. But they shall find that forged ground of theirs to be but dusty heaps of brittle sand. Perhaps it would be thought a heinous thing that I, a Frenchman, should discover this. But heaven I call to record of my vows. It is not hate, nor any private wrong, but love unto my country and the right provokes my tongue thus lavish in report. You are the lineal watchman of our peace, and John of Valois indirectly climbs. What then should subjects but embrace their king? Ah, wherein may our duty more be seen than striving to rebate a tyrant's pride and place the true shepherd of our commonwealth?
This counsel, Artois, like to fruitful showers, hath added growth unto my dignity. And by the fiery vigor of thy words, hot courage is engendered in my breast, which heretofore was raked in ignorance, but now doth mount with golden wings of fame, and will approve fair Isabel's descent, able to yoke their stubborn necks with steel that spurn against my sovereignty in France. A messenger. Lord Audley, know from whence?
The Duke of Lorraine, having crossed the seas, entreats he may have conference with your highness.
Admit him, lord, so we may hear the news. Say, Duke of Lorraine, wherefore art thou come?
The most renowned prince, King John of France, doth greet thee, Edward, and by me commands that, for so much as by his liberal gift the Guian dukedom is entailed to thee, thou do him lowly homage for the same. And for that purpose, here I summon thee. Repair to France within these 40 days, that there, according as the custom is, thou mayst be sworn true liegeman to our king. Or else thy title in that province dies, and he himself will repossess the place.
See! How occasion laughs me in the face! No sooner minded to prepare for France, but straight I am invited, nay, with threats upon a penalty, enjoined to come. 'Twere but a childish part to say him nay. Lorraine, return this answer to thy lord. I mean to visit him as he requests. But how? Not servilely disposed to bend, but like a conqueror to make him bow. His lame unpolished shifts are come to light, and truth hath pulled the vizard from his face that set a gloss upon his arrogance. Dare he command fealty in me? Tell him the crown that he usurps is mine, and where he sets his foot he ought to kneel. 'Tis not a petty dukedom that I claim, but all the whole dominions of the realm, which, if with grudging he refuse to yield, I will take away those borrowed plumes of his and send him naked to the wilderness.
Then, Edward, here, in spite of all thy lords, I do pronounce defiance to thy face.
Defiance, Frenchman? We rebound it back, even to the bottom of thy master's throat. And be it spoke with reverence of the king, my gracious father, and these other lords, I hold thy message but as scurrilous, and him that sent thee like the lazy drone crept up by stealth unto the eagle's nest, from whence we'll shake him with so rough a storm as others shall be warned by his harm.
Bid him leave the lion's case he wears. Least, meeting with a lion in the field, he chanced to tear him piecemeal for his pride.
The soundest counsel I can give his grace is to surrender ere he be constrained. A voluntary mischief hath less scorn than when reproach with violence is borne.
Degenerative traitor, viper to the place where thou wast fostered in thy infancy, bearest thou a part in this conspiracy?
Oran, behold the sharpness of this steel. Fervent desire that sits against my heart is far more thorny pricking than this blade. That with a nightingale I shall be scared, as oft as I dispose myself to rest until my colours be displayed in France. This is my final answer, so be gone.
It is not that, nor any English brave afflicts me so, as doth his poisoned view that is most false should most of all be true.
Now, Lord, our fleeting bark is under sail. Our gage is thrown, and war is soon begun, but on so quickly brought unto an end. But wherefore comes Sir William Montague? How stands the league between the Scot and us?
Cracked and dissevered, my renowned lord. The treacherous king no sooner was informed of your withdrawing of your army back, but straight, forgetting his former oath, he made invasion on the bordering towns. Berwick is won, Newcastle spoiled and lost, and now the tyrant hath begirt with siege and the castle of Roxenborough, where enclosed the Countess Salisbury is likely to perish.
That is thy daughter, Warwick, is it not? Whose husband hath in Bretagne served so long about the planting of Lord Montfort there?
It is, my lord.
Ignoble David! Hast thou none to grieve but silly ladies with thy threatening arms? But I will make you shrink your snaily horns. First, therefore, Audley, this shall be thy charge. Go levy footmen for our wars in France. And Ned, take muster of our men at arms. In every shire elect a several band. Let them be soldiers of a lusty spirit, such as dread nothing but dishonour's blot. Be wary, therefore, since we do commence a famous war, and with so mighty a nation. Darby, be thou ambassador for us unto our father-in-law, the Earl of Hainault. Make him acquainted with our enterprise, and likewise will him with our own allies that are in Flanders, to solicit to the Emperor of Allemagne in our name. Myself, whilst you are jointly thus employed, will, with these forces that I have at hand, march, and once more repulse the traitorous Scot. But, sirs, be resolute. We shall have wars on every side, and Ned, thou must begin now to forget thy study and thy books, and you are thy shoulders to an armour's weight.
Fearful sounding to my youthful spleen, this tumult is of war's increasing broils, as at the coronation of a king, the joyful clamours of the people are, when Ave Caesar they pronounce aloud. Within this school of honour I shall learn either to sacrifice my foes to death, or in a rightful quarrel spend my breath. Then cheerfully forward, each a several way. In great affairs 'tis not to use delay.
Act 1, Scene 2. The Scottish borderlands, before Roxburgh Castle. Enter the Countess of Salisbury on the battlements above.
Alas, how much in vain my poor eyes gaze for succour that my sovereign should send. Ah, cousin Montague, I fear thou want'st the lively spirit, sharply to solicit, with vehement suit, the king in my behalf. Thou dost not tell him what a grief it is to be the scornful captive of a Scot, either to be wooed with broad untuned oaths, or forced by rough insulting barbarism. Thou dost not tell him, if he here prevail, how much they will deride us in the north, and in their wild, uncivil, skipping gigs, brave forth their conquest and our overthrow, e'en in the barren, bleak, and fruitless air. I must withdraw. The everlasting foe comes to the wall. I'll closely step aside, and list their babble, blunt and full of pride.
My Lord of Lawrence, to our brother of France commend us as the man in Christendom that we most reverence and entirely love. Touching your embassage, return and say that we with England will not enter parley, nor never make fair weather to take truce, but burn their neighbours' towns, and so persist with eager rods beyond their city yoke. And never shall our bonny riders rest, nor rusting canker have the time to eat their light-born snaffles, nor their nimble spurs, nor lay aside their jacks of gimmeled mail, nor hang their staves of grained Scottish ash in peaceful wise upon their city walls, nor from their buttoned, tony leathered belts dismiss their biting vineyards, till your king cry out, "Enough! Spare England, enough for pity! Farewell, and tell him that you leave us here, before this castle. Say you came with us even when we had that yielded to our hands."
I take my leave, and fairly will return your acceptable greeting to my king.
Now, Douglas, to our former task again, for the division of this certain spoil.
My liege, I crave the lady, and no more.
Nay, soft ye, sir. First I must make my choice, and first I do bespeak her for myself.
Why then, my liege, let me enjoy her jewels.
Those are her own, still liable to her, and who inherits her hath those withal.
Liege, as we were pricking on the heels, the fetching booty marching hitherward, we might descry a might host of men. The sun, reflecting on the armor, showed a field of plate, a wood of picks advanced. Bethink your highness speedily herein. An easy march within 4 hours will bring a hindmost rank unto this place, my liege.
Dislodge! Dislodge! It is the King of England!
Jimmy, my man, settle my bonny brack.
Mean'st thou to fight, Douglas? We are too weak.
I know it well, my liege, and therefore fly.
My lords of Scotland, will ye stay and drink?
He mocks at us, Douglas. I cannot endure it.
Stay, good my lord, which is he must have the lady, and which her jewels? I am sure, my lords, ye will not hence till you have shared the spoils.
She heard the messenger and heard our talk, and now that comfort makes her scorn at us.
My good lord, oh, we are all surprised.
After the French ambassador, my liege, and tell him that you dare not ride to York. Excuse it that your bonny horse is lame.
She heard that too. Intolerable grief. Woman, farewell, although I do not stay.
'Tis not for fear, and yet you run away. Oh, happy comfort, welcome to our house. The confident and boisterous boasting Scot that swore before my walls they would not back for all the armed power of this land, with faceless fear that ever turns his back, turned hence against the blasting northeast wind upon the bare report and name of arms. Oh, summer's day, see where my cousin comes.
How fares my aunt? We are not Scots. Why do you shut your gates against your friends?
Well, may I give a welcome, cousin, to thee, for thou comest well to chase my foes from hence.
The king himself is come in person hither. Dear aunt, descend and congratulate his highness.
How may I entertain his majesty, to show my duty and his dignity?
What? Are the stealing foxes fled and gone before we could uncouple at their heels?
They are, my liege, but with a cheerful cry, hot hounds and hardy chase them at the heels.
This is the Countess, Warwick, is it not?
E'en she, my liege, whose beauty tyrants fear, as a May blossom with pernicious winds, hath sullied, withered, overcast, and done.
Hath she been fairer, Warwick, than she is?
My gracious king, fair is she not at all. If that herself were by to stain herself, as I have seen her when she was herself.
What strange enchantment lurked in those her eyes, when they excelled this excellence they have, that now her dim decline hath power to draw my subject eyes from piercing majesty, to gaze on her with doting admiration.
In duty lower than the ground I kneel, and for my dull knees bow my feeling heart, to witness my obedience to your highness, with many millions of a subject's thanks for this your royal presence, whose approach hath driven war and danger from my gate.
Lady, stand up. I come to bring thee peace. However, thereby I have purchased war.
No war to you, my liege. The Scots are gone, and gallop home toward Scotland with their hate.
Lest, yielding here, I pine in shameful love. Come, we'll pursue the Scots. Artois, away!
A little while, my gracious sovereign, stay, and let the power of a mighty king honor our roof. My husband in the wars, when he shall hear it, will triumph for joy. Then, dear my liege, now niggard is thy state. Being at the wall, enter our homely gate.
Pardon me, Countess. I will come not near. I dreamed tonight of treason, and I fear.
Far from this place, let ugly treason lie.
No farther off than her conspiring eye, which shoots infected poison in my heart, beyond repulse of wit or cure of art. Now in the sun alone it doth not lie, with light to take light from a mortal eye. For here 2 day stars that mine eyes would see more than the sun steals mine own light from me. Contemplative desire, desire to be in contemplation, that may master thee. Warwick, Artois, to horse, and let's away.
What might I speak to make my sovereign stay?
What needs a tongue to such a speaking eye, that more persuades than winning oratory?
Let not thy presence, like the April sun, flatter our earth and suddenly be done. More happy do not make our outward wall than thou wilt grace our inner house withal. Our house, my liege, is like a country swain, whose habit rude and manners blunt and plain presageth not, yet inly beautified with bounties, riches, and fair hidden pride. For where the golden ore doth buried lie, the ground undecked with nature's tapestry seems barren, sere, unfruitless, fertile, dry. And where the upper turf of earth doth boast his pride, perfumes, and party-colored coats, delve there and find this issue and their pride to spring from order and corruption's side. To make up my all too long compare, these ragged walls no testimony are what is within, but like a cloak doth hide from weather's waste the undergarnished pride. More gracious than my terms can let thee be, entreat thyself to stay a while with me.
As wise as fair. What fond fit can be heard when wisdom keeps the gate as beauty's guard? It shall attend while I attend on thee. Come on, my lords, here will I host tonight.
Act 2, Scene 1. The Gardens of Roxborough Castle. Enter Lodwick.
I might perceive his eye in her eye lost, his ear to drink her sweet tongue's utterance, and changing passion like inconstant clouds that rack upon the carriage of the winds, increase and die in his disturbed cheeks. Lo, when she blushed, even then did he look pale, as if her cheeks by some enchanted power attracted had the cherry blood from his. Anon, with reverent fear when she grew pale, his cheeks put on their scarlet ornaments, but no more like her oriental red than brick to coral or live things to dead. Why did he then thus counterfeit her looks? If she did blush, 'twas tender modest shame, being in the sacred presence of a king. If he did blush, 'twas red immodest shame, to veil his eyes amiss, being a king. If she looked pale, 'twas silly woman's fear, to bear herself in presence of a king. If he looked pale, it was with guilty fear, to dote amiss, being a mighty king. Then Scottish wars, farewell. I fear 'twill prove a lingering English siege of peevish love. Here comes his highness, walking all alone.
She is grown more fairer far since I came hither. Her voice more silver every word than other, her wit more fluent. What a strange discourse unfolded she of David and his Scots! E'en thus, quoth she, he spake, and then spoke broad with epithets and accents of the Scot, but somewhat better than the Scot could speak. And thus, quoth she, and answered then herself. For who could speak like her but she herself? Breathes from the wall an angel's note from heaven of sweet defiance to her barbarous foes. When she would talk of peace, methinks her tongue commanded war to prison. When of war, it wakened Caesar from his Roman grave. To hear war, beautified by her discourse. Wisdom is foolishness but in her tongue, beauty a slander but in her face. There is no summer but in her cheerful looks, nor frosty winter but in her disdain. I cannot blame the Scots that did besiege her, for she is all the treasure of our land. But call them cowards that they ran away, having so rich and fair a cause to stay. Art thou there, Lodowick? Give me ink and paper.
I will, my liege.
And bid the lords hold on their play at chess, for we will walk and meditate alone.
I will, my sovereign.
This fellow is well read in poetry, and hath a lusty and persuasive spirit. I will acquaint him with my passion, which he shall shadow with a veil of lawn, through which the Queen of Beauty's queen shall see herself the ground of my infirmity. Hast thou pen, ink, and paper ready, Lodowick?
Ready, my liege.
Then, in the summer arbor sit by me. Make it our council house or cabinet. Since green our thoughts, green be the conventicle, where we will ease us by disburdening them. Now, Lodowick, invocate some golden muse to bring thee hither an enchanted pen that may for sighs set down, true sighs indeed, talking of grief, to make thee ready groan. And when thou writest of tears, and couch the word before and after with such sweet laments that it may raise drops in a Tartar's eye, and make a flint heart Scythian pitiful. For so much moving hath a poet's pen. Then, if thou be a poet, move thou so, and be enriched by thy sovereign's love. For if the touch of sweet concordant strings could force attendance in the ears of hell, how much more shall the strains of a poet's wit beguile and ravish soft and human minds?
To whom, my lord, shall I direct my style?
To one that shames the fair and sots the wise, whose body is an abstract or a brief, contains each general virtue in the world. Better than beautiful, thou must begin. Devise for fair a fairer word than fair, and every ornament that thou wouldst praise, fly it a pitch above the soar of praise. For flattery fear thou not to be convicted. For were thy admiration 10 times more, 10 times 10,000 more, the worth exceeds of that thou art to praise, thy praise is worth. Begin. I will to contemplate the while. Forget not to set down how passionate, how heartsick, and how full of languishment her beauty makes me.
Write I to a woman?
What beauty else could triumph over me? Or who but woman do our love lays greet? What? Thinkest thou I did bid thee praise a horse?
Of what condition or estate she is? 'Twere requisite that I should know, my lord.
Of such estate that hers is as a throne, and my estate the footstool where she treads. Then mayest thou judge what her condition is by the proportion of her mightiness. Write on, while I peruse her in my thoughts. Her voice to music o'er the nightingale. To music every summer leaping swain compares his sunburnt lover when she speaks. And why should I speak of the nightingale? The nightingale sings of adulterate wrong, and that, compared, is too satirical. For sin, though sin would not be so esteemed, but rather virtue sin, sin virtue deemed. Her hair, far softer than the silkworm's twist, like to a flattering glass, doth make more fair the yellow amber. Like a flattering glass comes in too soon. For, writing of her eyes, I'll say that, like a glass, they catch the sun. And thence the hot reflection doth rebound against my breast, and burns my heart within. What a world descant makes my soul upon this voluntary ground of love! Come, Lodowick, hast thou turned thy ink to gold? If not, write but in letters capital my mistress' name, and it will gild thy paper. Read, Lord, read, fill the empty hollows of mine ears with the sweet hearing of thy poetry.
I have not to a period brought her praise.
Her praise is as my love, both infinite, which apprehends such violent extremes that they disdain an ending period. Her beauty hath no match but my affection. Hers more than most, mine most and more than more. Hers more to praise than tell the sea by drops. Nay, more than drop the massy earths by sands, and sand by sand print them in memory. Then, wherefore talk'st thou of a period to that which craves unended admiration? Read, let us hear.
More fair and chaste than is the Queen of Shades.
That line hath two faults, gross and palpable. Comparest thou her to the pale Queen of Night, who, being set in dark, seems therefore light? What is she? When the sun lifts up his head, but like a fading taper, dim and dead? My love shall brave the eye of heaven at noon, and being unmasked, outshine the golden sun.
What is the other fault, my sovereign lord?
Read o'er the line again.
More fair and chaste.
I did not bid thee talk of chastity, to ransack so the treasure of her mind, for I had rather had her chaste than chaste. Out with the moon line, I will none of it. And let me have her likened to the sun. Say she hath thrice more splendor than the sun, that her perfections emulate the sun, that she breeds sweets as plenteous as the sun, that she doth thaw cold winter like the sun, that she doth cheer fresh summer like the sun, that she doth dazzle gazers like the sun. And, in this application to the sun, bid her be free and general as the sun, who smiles upon the basest weed that grows as lovingly as on the fragrant rose. Let's see what follows that same moonlight line.
More fair and chaste than this, the Queen of Shades. More bold in constancy.
In constancy than who?
Than Judith was.
Oh, monstrous line! Put in the next a sword, and I shall woo her to cut off my head. Blot, blot, good Lodwick. Let us hear next.
There's all that yet is done.
I thank thee, then. Thou hast done little ill, but what is done is passing ill. No, let the captain talk of boisterous war, the prisoner of immured dark constraint. The sick man best sets down the pangs of death, the man that starves, the sweetness of a feast, the frozen soul, the benefit of fire, and every grief his happy opposite. Love cannot sound well, but in lovers' tongues. Give me the pen and paper, I will write. Oh, but soft, here comes the treasure of my spirit. Ludwig, thou knowest not how to draw a battle. These wings, these flankers, and these squadrons argue in thee defective discipline. Now thou shouldst have placed this here, this other here.
Pardon my boldness, my thrice gracious lords. Let my intrusion here be called my duty, that comes to see my sovereign how he fares.
Go, draw the same. I tell thee in what form.
I go.
Sorry I am to see my liege so sad. What may thy subject do to drive from thee, thy gloomy consort, sullen melancholy?
Lady, I am blunt and cannot straw the flowers of solace in a ground of shame. Since I came hither, Countess, I am wronged.
Now God forbid any in my house should think my sovereign wrong. Thrice gentle king, acquaint me with the cause of your discontent.
How near then shall I be to remedy?
As near, my liege, as all my women's power can pawn itself to buy thy remedy.
If thou speakest true, then I have my redress. Engage thy power to redeem my joys, and I am joyful, Countess. Else I die.
I will, my liege.
Swear, Countess, that thou wilt.
By heaven, I will.
Then take thyself a little way aside, and tell thyself, a king doth dote on thee. Say that within thy power it doth lie to make him happy. and that thou hast sworn to give him all the joy within thy power. Do this, and tell me when I shall be happy.
All this is done, my thrice dread sovereign. That power of love that I have power to give, thou hast with all devout obedience. Employ me how thou wilt in proof thereof.
Thou hearest me say that I do dote on thee.
If on my beauty, take it if thou canst, though little I do prize it 10 times less. If on my virtue, take it if thou canst, for virtue's store by giving doth augment. Be it on what it will that I can give, and thou canst take away, inherit it.
It is thy beauty that I would enjoy.
Oh, were it painted, I would wipe it off and dispossess myself to give it thee. But sovereign, it is soldered to my life. Take one and both, for like a humble shadow, it haunts the sunshine of my summer's life.
But thou mayest lend it to me to sport withal.
As easy may my intellectual soul be lent away, and yet my body live, as lend my body palace to my soul away from her, and yet retain my soul. My body is her bower, her court, her abbey, and she an angel pure, divine, unspotted. If I should leave her house, my lord, to thee, I'd kill my poor soul, and my poor soul me.
Didst thou not swear to give me what I would?
I did, my liege, so what you would I could.
I wish no more of thee than thou mayest give. Nor beg I do not, but I rather buy. That is, thy love. For that love of thine in rich exchange I tender to thee mine.
But that your lips were sacred, my lord, you would profane the holy name of love. That love you offer me you cannot give, for Caesar owes that tribute to his queen. That love you beg of me I cannot give, for Sarah owes that duty to her lord. He that doth clip or counterfeit your stamp shall die, my lord, and will your sacred self commit high treason against the King of Heaven to stamp his image in forbidden metal, forgetting your allegiance and your oath. In violating marriage sacred law, you break a greater honor than yourself. To be a king is of a younger house than to be married. Your progenitor, sole reigning atom on the universe, by God was honored for a married man, but not by him anointed for a king. It is a penalty to break your statutes, though not enacted with your highness' hand. How much more to infringe the holy act made by the mouth of God, sealed with his hand. I know, my sovereign, in my husband's love, who now doth loyal service in his wars, doth but so try the wife of Salisbury, whether she will hear a wanton's tale or no, lest being therein guilty by my stay, from that, not from my liege.
Whether is her beauty by her words dying, or are her words sweet chaplains to her beauty? Like as the wind doth beautify a sail, and as a sail becomes the unseen wind, so do her words, her beauty's words. Oh, that I were a honey-gathering bee to bear the comb of virtue from this flower, and not a poison-sucking envious spider to turn the juice I take to deadly venom. Religion is austere and beauty gentle. Too strict a guardian for so fair a ward. Oh, that she were as is the air to me! Why, so she is. For when I would embrace her, this do I, and catch nothing but myself. I must enjoy her, for I cannot beat with reason and reproof fond love away. Here comes her father. I will work with him to bear my colors in this field of love.
How is it that my sovereign is so sad? May I know your highness's grief, and that my old endeavor will remove it. It shall not cumber long, your majesty.
A kind and voluntary gift thou profferest, that I was forward to have begged of thee. But, oh, thou world, great nurse of flattery, why dost thou tip men's tongues with golden words, appease their deeds with weight of heavy lead, that fair performance cannot follow promise? Oh, that a man might hold the heart's close book and choke the lavish tongue when it doth utter the breath of falsehood not charactered there.
Far be it from the honor of my age, that I should owe bright gold and render lead. Age, is a cynic, not a flatterer. I say again that if I knew your grief, and that by me it might be lessened, my proper harm should buy your highness good.
These are the vulgar tenders of false men that never pay the duty of their words. Thou wilt not stick to swear what thou hast said. But, when thou knowest my grief's condition, this rash disgorged vomit of thy word thou wilt eat up again, and leave me helpless.
By heaven, I will not, though your majesty did bid me run upon your sword and die.
Say that my grief is no way medicinable, but by the loss and bruising of thine honor.
If nothing but that loss may vantage you, I would account that loss my vantage too.
Thinkst that thou canst unswear thy oath again?
I cannot, nor I would not, if I could.
But if thou dost, what shall I say to thee?
What may be said to any perjured villain that breaks the sacred warrant of an oath.
What wilt thou say to one that breaks an oath?
That he broke his faith with God and man, and from them both stands excommunicate.
What office were it to suggest a man to break a lawful and religious vow?
An office for the devil, not for man.
That devil's office must thou do for me, or break thy oath, or cancel all the bonds of love and duty twixt thyself and me. And therefore, Warwick, if thou art thyself, the lord and master of thy word and oath, go to thy daughter, and in my behalf command her, woo her, win her any ways, to be my mistress and my secret love. I will not stand to hear thee make reply. Thy oath break hers, or let thy sovereign die.
O doting king, O detestable office! Well may I tempt myself to wrong myself, when he hath sworn me by the name of God to break a vow made by the name of God. What if I swear by this right hand of mine to cut this right hand off? The better way were to profane the idol that confound it. But neither will do. I'll keep mine oath, and to my daughter make a recantation of all the virtue I have preached to her. I'll say she must forget her husband Salisbury if she remember to embrace the king. I'll say an oath may easily be broken, but not so easily pardoned being broken. I'll say it is true charity to love, but not true love to be so charitable. I'll say his greatness may bear out the shame, but not his kingdom can buy out the sin. I'll say it is my duty to persuade, but not her honesty to give consent. See where she comes. Was never father had against his child so embassage, so bad.
My lord and father, I have sought for you. My mother and the peers importune you to keep in presence of his majesty, and do your best to make his highness merry.
How shall I enter in this graceless errand? I must not call her child, for where's the father that will in such a suit seduce his child? Then, wife of Salisbury, shall I so begin? No, he's my friend. And where is found the friend that will do friendship such endamagement? Neither my daughter, nor my dear friend's wife. I am not Warwick, as thou thinkst I am, but an attorney from the court of hell, that thus has housed my spirit in his form to do a message to thee from the king. The mighty king of England dotes on thee. He that hath power to take away thy life hath power to take thy honor, then consent to pawn thine honor rather than thy life. Honor is often lost and got again, but life, once gone, hath no recovery. The sun that withers hay doth nourish grass. The king that would disdain thee will advance thee. The poets write that great Achilles' spear could heal the wound it made. The mortal is what mighty men misdo, they can amend. The lion doth become his bloody jaws, and grace his forgement by being mild. When vassal fear lies trembling at his feet, the king will in his glory hide thy shame. And those that gaze upon him to find out thee will lose thy sight, looking in the sun. What can one drop of poison harm the sea, whose huge vasters can digest the ill and make it lose its operation? The king's great name will temper thy misdeeds and give the bitter potion of reproach a sugared, sweet, and most delicious taste. Besides, it is no harm to do the thing which without shame could not be left undone. Thus have I, in his majesty's behalf, apparelled sin in virtuous sentences, and dwell upon thy answer in his suit.
Unnatural besiege. Woe me, unhappy, to have escaped the danger of my foes, and to be 10 times worse injured by friends. Hath he no means to stain my honest blood, but to corrupt the author of my blood, to be his scandalous and vile solicitor? No marvel though the branches be then infected, when poison hath encompassed the root. No marvel though the leprous infant die, when the stern dame envenometh the dug. Why then give sin a passport to offend, and youth the dangerous reign of liberty? Blot out the strict forbidding of the law, and cancel every canon that prescribes a shame for shame or penance for offense. No, let me die if his too boisterous will have it so, before I will consent to be an actor in his graceless lust.
Why, now thou speakst what I would have thee speak. And mark how I unsay my words again. An honorable grave is more esteemed than the polluted closet of a king. The greater man, the greater is the thing, be it good or bad, that he shall undertake. An unreputed mote flying in the sun presents a greater substance than it is. The freshest summer day doth soonest taint the loathed carrion that it seems to kiss. Deep are the blows made with a mighty axe. The sin doth 10 times aggravate itself that is committed in a holy place. An evil deed done by authority is sin and subordination. Deck an ape in tissue, and the beauty of the robe adds but the greater scorn unto the beast. A spacious field of reasons could I urge between his glory, daughter, and thy shame. That poison shows worse in a golden cup. Dark night seems darker by the lightning flash. Lilies that fester smell far worse than weeds. The shame is treble by the opposite. So leave I with my blessings in thy bosom, which then convert to a most heavy curse, when thou convertest from honor's golden name to the black faction of blood-blotting shame.
I'll follow thee, and when my mind turns so, my body sink my soul in endless woe.
Act 2, Scene 2, Roxborough, a room in the castle. Enter Darby, from France, and Audley.
Thrice noble Audley, well encountered here. How is it with our sovereign and his peers?
'Tis full a fortnight since I saw his highness, what time he sent me forth to muster men, which I accordingly have done, and bring them hither in fair array before his majesty. What news, my lord of Derby, from the emperor?
As good as we desire. The emperor hath yielded to his highness friendly aid, and makes our king lieutenant general in all his lands and large dominions. Then via for the spacious bounds of France.
What doth his highness leap to hear these news?
I have not yet found time to open them. The king is in his closet malcontent, for what I know not, but he gave in charge, till after dinner none should interrupt him. The Countess Salisbury and her father Warwick, Artois, and all look underneath the brows.
Undoubtedly, then, something is amiss.
Trumpet sound. The king is now abroad.
Here comes His Highness.
Befall my sovereign, all my sovereign's wish.
Ah, that thou wert a witch to make it so.
The emperor greeteth you,
Would it were the countess.
and hath accorded to your highness suit.
Thou liest, she hath not, but I would she had.
All love and duty to my lord the king.
Well, all but one is none. What news with you?
I have, my liege, levied those horse and foot according to your charge, and brought them hither.
Then let those foot trudge hence upon those horse, according to our discharge, and be gone. Darby, I'll look upon the countess' mind anon.
The countess mine, my liege?
I mean the emperor. Leave me alone.
What is his mind?
Let's leave him to his humor.
Thus from my heart's abundance speaks the tongue. Countess for emperor. And indeed, why not? She is as imperator over me, and I to her, and as a kneeling vassal that observes the pleasure or displeasure of her eye. What says the more than Cleopatra's match to Caesar now?
That yet, my liege, ere night she will resolve your majesty.
What drum is this that thunders forth this march to start the tender Cupid in my bosom? Poor sheepskin, how it brawls with him that beateth it! Go, break the thundering parchment bottom out, and I will teach it to conduct sweet lines under the bosom of a heavenly nymph. For I will use it as my writing paper, and so reduce him from a scolding drum to the herald and dear counsel-bearer betwixt a goddess and a mighty king. Go, bid the drummer learn to touch the lute, or hang him in the braces of his drum, for now we think it an uncivil thing to trouble heaven with such harsh resounds. Away! The quarrel that I have requires no arms but these of mine, and these shall meet my foe in a deep march of penetrable groans. My eyes shall be my arrows, and my sighs shall serve me as the vantage of the wind to whirl away my sweetest artillery. Ah, but alas, she wins the son of me. For that is she herself, and thence it comes that poets term the wanton warrior blind. But love hath eyes as judgment to his steps, till too much loved glory dazzles them. How now?
My liege, the drum that stroked the lusty march stands with Prince Edward, your thrice valiant son.
I see the boy. Oh, how his mother's face, modelled in his, corrects my strayed desire, and rates my heart, and chides my thievish eye, who being rich enough in seeing her, yet seeks elsewhere. Basest theft is that which cannot cloak itself on poverty. Now, boy, what news?
I have assembled, my dear lord and father, the choicest buds of all our English blood for our affairs in France, and here we come to take direction from your majesty.
Still do I see in him delineate his mother's visage. Those his eyes are hers, who, looking wistly on me, make me blush. For faults against themselves make evidence. Lust is fire, and men like lanthorns show light lust within themselves, e'en through themselves. Ah, away, loose silks of wavering vanity! Shall the large limit of fair Bretagne by me be overthrown? And shall I not master this little mansion of myself? Give me an armor of eternal steel. I go to conquer kings. And shall I not then subdue myself, and be my enemy's friend? It must not be. Come, boy, forward, advance. Let's with our colours sweet the heir of France.
My liege, the countess with a smiling cheer desires access unto your majesty.
Why, there it goes. That very smile of hers hath ransomed captive France, and set the king, the dauphin, and the peers at liberty. Go, leave me, Ned, and revel with thy friends. Thy mother is but black, and thou, like her, dost put it in my mind how foul she is. Go, fetch the countess hither in thy hand, and let her chase away these winter clouds, for she gives beauty both to heaven and earth. The sin is more to hack and hew poor men, than to embrace in an unlawful bed the register of all rarities since leathern Adam till this youngest hour. Go, Lodowick, put thy hand into my purse. Play, spend, give, riot, waste, do what thou wilt. So thou wilt hence a while, and leave me here. Now, my soul's playfellow, art thou come to speak the more than heavenly word of yea to my objection in thy beauteous love?
My father on his blessing hath commanded.
That thou shalt yield to me.
Aye, dear my liege, your due.
And that, my dearest love, can be no less than right for right, and tender love for love.
Then wrong for wrong, and endless hate for hate. But sith I see your majesty so bent that my unwillingness, my husband's love, your high estate, nor no respect respected, can be my help, but that your mightiness will overbear and awe these dear regards, I bind my discontent to my content, and what I would not, I'll compel I will, provided that yourself remove those lets that stand between your highness' love and mine.
Well, name them, fair countess, and by heaven I will.
It is their lives that stand between our love, and I would have choked up my sovereign.
Whose lives, my lady?
My thrice-loving liege, your queen and Salisbury, my wedded husband, who living hath that title in our love, that we cannot bestow but by their death.
Thy opposition is beyond our law.
So is your desire. If the law can hinder you to execute the one, let it forbid you to attempt the other. I cannot think you love me, as you say, unless you do make good what you have sworn.
No more. Thy husband and the queen shall die. Fair thou art by far than Hero was. Beardless Leander not so strong as I. He swum an easy current for his love. But I will through a Hellespont of blood to arrive at Sestos, where my hero lies.
Nay, you'll do more. You'll make the river too, with their heart bloods that keep our love asunder, of which my husband and your wife are twain.
Thy beauty makes them guilty of their death, and gives an evidence that they shall die. Upon which verdict I, their judge, condemn them.
Oh, perjured beauty, more corrupted judge, when to the great star chamber o'er our heads the universal session calls to count this packing evil, we shall both tremble for it.
What says my fair love? Is she resolute?
Resolved to be dissolved, and therefore this. Keep but thy word, great king, and I am thine. Stand where thou dost, I'll part a little from thee, and see how I will yield me to thy hands. Here, by my side doth hang my wedding knives. Take thou the one, and with it kill thy queen, and learn by me to find her where she lies. And with this other I'll dispatch my love, which now lies fast asleep within my heart. When they are gone, then I'll consent to love. Stir not, lascivious king, to hinder me. My resolution is more nimbler far than thy prevention can be in my rescue. And if thou stir, I strike, therefore stand still, and hear the choice that I will put thee to. Either swear to leave thy most unholy suit, and never henceforth to solicit me, or else by heaven this sharp-pointed knife shall stain the earth with that which thou wouldst stain my poor chaste blood. Swear, Edward, swear, or I will strike and die before thee here.
Even by that power I swear, that gives me now the power to be ashamed of myself. I never mean to part my lips again in any words that tends to such a suit. Arise, true English lady, whom our isle may better boast of than e'er Roman might of her, whose ransacked treasury hath tasked the vain endeavour of so many pens, Arise, and be my fault thy honour's fame, which after ages shall enrich thee with. I'm awakened from this idle dream. Warwick, my son, Derby, Artois, and Audley, brave warriors all, where are you all this while? Warwick, I make thee Warden of the North. Thou, Prince of Wales. And Audley, straight to sea. Scour to New Haven. Some there stay for me. Myself, Artois, and Derby will through Flanders, to greet our friends there and to crave their aid. This night will scarce suffice me to discover my folly's siege against a faithful lover. For ere the sun shall gild the eastern sky, we'll wake him with our martial harmony.